Look, the NFL doesn't need more games. It needs a better season. We don't have a football problem. We have a schedule problem. So in this video, I'm bringing back the classic 16-game season, but I'm stretching it over a longer calendar, building in real rest, and keeping Sundays feeling like the NFL you grew up with. Less chaos, more rhythm, and a season that actually makes sense for players and fans. Right now, the NFL runs a 17-game season stretched over 18 weeks, with just one bye built in for each team. The regular season kicks off in early September and doesn't wrap until early January, and that extra week is what's pushed the Super Bowl into the second Sunday in February. Bye weeks are scattered from about week 5 through week 14, which means some teams get a nice midseason reset and others grind through long stretches with almost no real break in the middle of the year. For me, 16 games has always been the right number. It's long enough for a real season arc, but short enough that every Sunday still feels like an event. From a player standpoint, 16 is already a brutal grind. Adding more games doesn't add drama, it just adds mileage on bodies that are cooked by December. This isn't about nostalgia. It's about keeping that 16-game core and building a smarter calendar around it. More rest, better pacing, and a season that feels big without feeling bloated. All right, so here's how I'd rebuild the season. We keep the classic 16 games, but we stretch them across 20 weeks and delete the preseason completely. Same number of real games you're used to, but way more structure and rest baked in. The first 2 weeks of the year are simple. Every team plays, no buys, everybody hits the ground running together. After that, from week 3 through week 18, the schedule breaks into 4-week pods. Inside each pod, every team gets one bye week and 3 games. So you're never going more than a few weeks without a real break. Then we slam the door with a clean finish. The last 2 weeks of the regular season are buyout free. Again, every team on the field, all the playoff races and seeding battles happening at the same time. You end up with a longer, better paced calendar, more total rest, and still only 16 chances that actually count, so every Sunday keeps its weight. Now, if you zoom out to the calendar, you really see the difference. In the current setup, the regular season doesn't even kick off until early September, and it runs all the way into early January. Then you stack playoffs on top of that, and suddenly the Super Bowl is living deep into February, way later than most of us grew up with. In my version, you slide everything forward. The 16-game regular season stretches across 20 weeks starting in August and wrapping in December. You still get January football for the playoffs and a big February championship moment, but you're not dragging a bloated regular season halfway through winter just to squeeze in one extra game. I'm not against the NFL going global. I actually think it's awesome that fans in Germany, London, Brazil, and everywhere else get real games. The problem right now is the travel feels random. You're asking teams to fly across an ocean, flip their body clocks, and then jump right back into a normal grind. In this 16-game 20-week setup, every team still gets an international game every year, but it lives inside the structure instead of fighting it. Here's how the international piece works when you plug it into the pods. Remember, pods 2 through 5 are all the same basic rhythm. 3 games and 1 bye over 4 weeks. Inside those 16 weeks, the league schedules 2 international games per week. That gives you a steady flow of global matchups without ever turning one weekend into a full-on neutral site circus. Every team plays exactly 1 international game per season. When a team gets that game, it's always tied to a bye in the same pod, either the week before they travel or the week right after they get home. So instead of flying 8 or 10 hours and rolling straight into 3 more weeks of punishment, they get a built-in reset on one side of that trip. From a calendar standpoint, this gives the league 8 straight weeks in the middle of the year, pods 2 through 5, where fans know, okay, there are 2 international games this weekend, every single weekend. You can stage a rotation of host cities, London and Germany locked in, Mexico City and Brazil, maybe Spain, Canada, even a one-off off in Australia down the line. Sponsors and broadcasters know when those windows are coming, and fans overseas can actually plan months in advance. On the player side, it's simple. You're not adding extra games. You're trading 1 normal game for 1 international game, and you're surrounding that travel with recovery time that already lives inside the schedule. The pod doesn't break, the bye still hits, and the team gets to come back to a normal rhythm instead of being jet lagged for half a month. So instead of the international slate feeling like a random set of bonus events sprinkled on top of a 17-game grind, it becomes part of the backbone of the season. 3 games, 1 bye, and once a year, one of those games happens to be on a different continent. All right, let's build this out for the defending champs, the Seahawks, so you can see it week by week. Block 1 is weeks 1 and 2. Week 1, banner night in Seattle, 49ers at Seahawks, ring ceremony, divisional game right out of the gate. Week 2, they go on the road, Seahawks at Rams. Still no buys in the league yet. Everybody's playing. Now we move into the 4 big pods that define the middle of the year, blocks 2 through 5, each one 4 weeks long, 3 games and 1 bye. Block 2, weeks 3 through 6, might look like this. Week 3, Seahawks at Cardinals. Week 4, Bears at Seahawks. Week 5, bye week. Week 6, Seahawks at Broncos. A little altitude road trip to Denver. Block 3, weeks 7 through 10 is where we drop their international game. Week 7, Eagles at Seahawks, heavyweight NFC matchup in Seattle. Week 8, Seahawks at Chargers, late window game in LA. Week 9, International Week, Seahawks versus Panthers in Munich, Germany, neutral site at Allianz Arena. Week 10, bye week, so they come home, reset, and don't immediately jump back into another 3-game gauntlet. Block 4, weeks 11 through 14, brings them back into the division in the AFC rotation. Week 11, Seahawks at Patriots, cold weather November road game in Foxborough. Week 12, Cowboys at Seahawks in prime time. Week 13, bye week. Week 14, Seahawks at Giants, another East Coast trip, but with that bye already banked. Block 5, weeks 15 through 18 is the last pod with a built-in breather. Week 15, Seahawks at Chiefs, massive ladies season non-conference game. Week 16, Cardinals at Seahawks. Week 17, bye week, one last reset before the stretch run. Week 18, Seahawks at 49ers, rivalry game with playoff seeding all over it. Then you hit block 6, weeks 19 and 20, the final 2 weeks of the regular season. And just like the start, there are no buys, everybody plays. Week 19, Rams at Seahawks, could be for the division. Week 20, Seahawks at Cardinals, one more divisional game to close the book before the playoffs. That's 16 games laid out over 20 weeks, 2 games to start, 4 pods of 3 games and 1 bye in the middle, with their Munich trip baked into one of those pods and protected by a bye, and 2 games to finish where every team in the league is on the field at the same time pushing for the postseason. This 20-week setup is actually a TV network's dream. With 2 international games every week in pods 2 through 5, you've basically created 2 permanent national time slots built into the middle of the season. One can live early, one can live late, or you can flex them to match local prime times overseas. But either way, there are 2 games every week that everyone knows are going to be globally featured. At the same time, those pods are sending 8 teams on buys every week. Fewer teams playing means fewer games jammed into that 1 p.m. Sunday window. Instead of 9 or 10 games all kicking off at the same time and getting chopped up into tiny regional slices, you've got a leaner slate where more individual matchups can breathe. That lets networks elevate more games into clear spotlight windows. You still keep your normal Sunday afternoon and Primita time structure, but the middle of the year stops feeling like a wall of overlapping broadcasts and starts feeling like a series of featured events spread across the day. All right, here's the deal I'm putting on the table. You go back to 16 games, but you stretch them over 20 weeks. You build in real buys, you protect the international travel, and you clean up the TV windows so fewer games get buried in the 1 p.m. chaos. Same number of real Sundays, less wear on the players, a schedule that actually makes sense for fans, TV, and the record book. Drop a comment and tell me if you'd run with this or if you like it as is, and I'll see you next time.